Okay, so today we're trying something a little different. We're not discussing an actual review. We're discussing how to salvage a busted movie, or in this case, a busted franchise. I am not a fan of just writing a movie off as utter dog shit. I usually try to sort the good and the bad, and if a movie has anything redeeming about it, I can at least point to that much, which is why we're going to be discussing the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil movies this way. I don't hate them as much as I let on. They're kind of an excuse to just put on some background noise and kill an afternoon. They're shit. I mean, from start to finish, all 6 movies are just shit. But they can occasionally be entertaining shit. But the thing is that Resident Evil, in my opinion, deserves better than the 6 movies that were initially released. And kiss my ass, Welcome to Raccoon City is still good, in spite of all its flaws.
I agree.
First order of business, in my eyes, would be cleaving Alice from any and all existence. Cleaving Alice from existence, cleaving the Red Queen from existence, because let's be real here, Alice and the Red Queen, the whole first Resident Evil movie, which everybody claims to be one of the good ones, or the only good one, I don't know what movie you guys were watching. The whole movie was just some clunky allegory for Alice in Wonderland, which would have been cool if The Matrix hadn't already done that and done it better.
Amen. Sorry, Alice, you gotta go.
Yeah, when I talked about Welcome to Raccoon City last year, I said that my version of the movie would probably have been more along the lines of S.D. Perry's novelization, but
Yeah, bro.
Which is a good book, and I haven't read all 7 of her novelizations. I've only read up to the 5th one, which was the RE3 novelization. I did like how she went through familiar territory, but she still managed to pull enough surprises to satisfy anybody who's played those games to hell and back. If we're talking about salvaging the Anderson Evil series, which went from a clunky allegory to Alice in Wonderland to Buffy the Tyrant Slayer in all of about 2 movies. Well, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me those movies did not devolve into that.
Bro, that Nemesis fight in the second one made me think I was high as shit for some reason.
Well, it's not your fault. It's just the movie's shitty editor.
That scene was more choppier than the rave scene in Freddy vs. Jason.
Oh. And I like Freddy vs. Jason, but my god.
Another topic for another video.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was 2004 editing at its finest, and not so finest at the same time. Is there anything from Anderson's first Resident Evil movie you would probably want to keep in before we get into what all we would change?
Well, I read that one of the original ideas was, I think they just took away the star's name. They took away the star's name, but still brought in the main characters like Chris, Jill, Wesker, whatever, and had them serve as just like some sort of like military special forces team investigating a mansion. And basically, they get reports of a secret Umbrella facility, and they're going to investigate only to end up in the fight of their lives. I probably would have made it like more close to that, or more close to the first game with some changes. Like, I would definitely throw in Lisa Trevor, and I might even throw in a liquor or two, honestly.
Yeah,
because the liquor is the mutation stage after the Crimson Head.
See, if there's anything about that initial movie I would probably keep. First off, I do like the idea of the film's opening, where it's a third-party source trying to steal the T-virus and then leaving an infection behind to cover their tracks. I would wildly change who that person is, however, if we're scrubbing Alice from existence.
Which means scrubbing Spencer from existence, too?
Yes.
Okie doke.
Yeah, James Purefoy was above that movie.
Yeah, in so many ways.
But at least he made Solomon Kane.
That was a good movie.
That movie deserved to have a fucking trilogy. But moving on.
Who would you replace that character with?
In the original game, Wesker was working for a third party to steal the T-Virus and steal combat data. I wouldn't make it Wesker. I would make it probably an outside source that maybe is secretly in contact with Wesker. Possibly Ada. Probably have Ada, first off, stealing the virus, but also injecting herself with an antivirus, releasing the T-Virus through the air filtration system into the lab, and then trying to record the data on it through the security office.
That sounds solid.
Because let's be real here, her entire job revolves around manipulating people and using people for her own objectives.
Yeah, she's basically the Catwoman of the Resident Evil series.
Yeah, for better or worse.
And unfortunately, Leon is Bruce Wayne / Batman in this case.
So I would probably have Ada she's been employed at this point for so long at her job that she kind of has very little, if any, conscience, which would explain why she has no problems releasing the T-Virus in the lab. So after the whole bit of the opening scene where she releases the virus, you then cut to Leon. Similar to how we were introduced to him in Welcome to Raccoon City, he's hungover as hell. He's popping aspirin like they're peanut M&Ms.
I love that.
I don't know if I would necessarily have him passed out and everybody else on the force fucking with him at the diner like we saw in Welcome to Raccoon City, but Homeboy's got a drink up, is barely functioning, and he's drinking an entire pot of coffee at that point. And he, of course, has to report for roll call through Marvin, because Marvin has not been in a Resident Evil movie yet.
Caswell Smith.
In 2002, I think he was too expensive by that point.
Probably. Still.
Leon showing up for roll call and being assigned his training officer, who at that point, we could probably say that Leon was so good in the academy that he was able to get assigned stars straight out of the gate. And so Jill would probably be his training officer. Putting Leon in stars straight out of the academy, not too far off from Rebecca Chambers being assigned to stars like shortly after she got done with her academy training. Assign Leon to Jill as his TO. Could probably introduce some of the other stars members just because, or at the very least Wesker. I don't know if we would introduce any other members of the stars team to the story, or if it would mostly be Jill and Leon, because I would want to kind of keep the cast extremely minimal, just for brevity's sake.
So you can introduce them in later movies.
Yeah, so that the entire movie isn't just bombarded with because that's one of my biggest problems with the that first Anderson movie. It's like there's all these different characters that get introduced, and then people are just killed off before you find a single reason to give a fuck about them.
That's called shitty storytelling.
Yeah, like at least Welcome to Raccoon City still tried to balance out its ensemble, and whether it did a good job of it, I think it did it okay, but clearly you and I are in the minority on that, I guess.
I wonder how Welcome to Raccoon City would have been if they brought in Nemesis. Because I kind of want to see, in an official capacity, Chris Redfield go up against Nemesis.
That movie should have been over 2 hours long. Just for how many characters were in the movie and how much story they still had to go over. So if we're gonna get Leon and Jill into the mansion, I would suggest during the opening scene where Ada's released the virus into the lab beneath the Spencer mansion, maybe somebody is trying to get a call out to Umbrella's security or something like that and ends up dialing 911, which would turn regular RPD onto what's happening at the mansion. Maybe a couple officers get sent there, no word from them in like 6 hours or so somebody from STARS has to go up there, which would lead to Jill and Leon being sent up to the mansion. course, with their wildly different dynamic, Jill's been at the job a few years. And, of course, she was Green Beret before she joined STARS. So, Leon is just some schmuck fresh out of the academy, nursing a hangover from hell. Once they find their way into the mansion, of course, that's when they could probably find one of the officers dead, being chewed on by the head-turning zombie.
Real quick, and that's in that scene where the zombie turns its head. Would you add the music score?
I would probably leave it out. And that's another thing we got to talk about is the music. The the music from that first RE movie just...
Are you talking about the music in the beginning?
The whole movie, you'd have to completely change up the way that movie was shot, the way that movie was edited, and the way that movie was scored. The score alone hurt the movie, in my opinion, because any attempt at atmospheric tension that Anderson was trying to build was constantly being undone by Marilyn Manson electronics and guitar riffs playing in the background, because Marilyn Manson was involved with that film's score. Again, you would have to take out the pointless bit of bullet time. You would have to take out any characters using martial arts to fight off zombies. Resident Evil needs kung fu, bullet time, and heavy metal like Barry Burton needs a razor. Now I kind of want to see a Gillette ad involving Barry Burton and at some point having to hold up a razor and go, "I have this."
And then Jill comes in wearing a sandwich costume. Oh man, the Jill sandwich reference in Welcome to Raccoon City.
Hey, you snooze, you lose. What? It's Jill sandwich now.
Hey, that was perfect.
No wonder Wesker turned against them, because Jill stole his fucking sandwich. It's like Ross and Friends.
You threw my sandwich away. My sandwich! My sandwich!
Back to salvaging the first movie. Leon, head-turning zombie. I haven't thought about whether or not they should be flooded with an army of zombies immediately after that, like what happened to Chris and Richard in Welcome to Raccoon City. I would probably not go for that. I would probably make it so that Jill and Leon are unable to get out of the mansion right away. Maybe there are some Cerberus dogs hanging around outside.
Yeah, they try to run out, see several dogs coming towards them, and they decide, "Fuck, get back inside, get back inside, get back inside."
Well, in RE1, if you try to leave the mansion, a Cerberus dog will pop through the door and try to get at you.
While in the remake, it actually does get in.
Yeah, so again, a nice little throw-in reference to that. Maybe even recreate the infamous hallway scene from RE1. So I had an idea, and this was coming to me earlier today as I was watching some of the Anderson films, because I try to watch them all at least once a year because I hate myself. I thought of possibly throwing in maybe a small team of Umbrella Commandos that are trying to figure out what's going on in the lab or in the mansion down low, and Leon and Jill having to hide from them because they're kind of purging the residents of the undead. And Leon and Jill, well, they don't know any better. All they know is here's these guys in military uniforms killing people, but they can't get to their radio because it's out in the car, and what else is outside? Oh, the fucking dogs.
And will these soldiers look similar to the hazmat soldiers seen in Welcome to Raccoon City, like the gas mask and all?
I thought about that. Like, they would probably look like that, or they could possibly be Hunk's team. Maybe at some point Leon and Jill would find their way into the lab and coming across Ada, who is posing as an Umbrella scientist and apparently the only one still alive. Leon being Leon, because we know he's got yellow fever like a motherfucker, would probably go and get himself bitten trying to keep a zombie from getting at her. And of course they don't know, Jill and Leon don't know yet that the infection is spread through bites.
Kind of like with Rain in the first Resident Evil movie.
Yeah, except I wouldn't kill Leon by the end of the movie. Like, there could possibly be a small character arc involving Leon putting himself in front of Ada to get her out of the lab. Maybe Ada isn't so jaded with her career choice by the end and breaks out her only sample of the antivirus to save his life.
Definitely something Ada would do. I mean, she did take time to treat him of his bullet wound in the original Resident Evil 2, so that could be a good reference.
Yeah, she does have a heart, even if she doesn't always use it. There would probably be a running ambiguity as to, like Jill and Leon on their way into the lab through the mansion might hear Hunk and his team discussing a possible source in the police station or in the local police. There could be that third act reveal of it being Wesker, and Wesker unleashing the tyrant to try to stop Leon and Jill and Ada from getting out of the lab, because Wesker would be making off with the T-virus sample. I would possibly have him get cornered and taken out by some chimera, like what happens in the original RE1. Or
wasn't it in the novelization?
It is in the novelization, although I would probably replace the Chimera with the Hunters, because there would be a whole sequence involving the Hunters. The scene I'm picturing would probably take place in the lab, and it would be something similar to the scene with the raptors in the kitchen in the first Jurassic Park. Of course, Jill and Leon wouldn't know how tough the Hunters are, so they would want to avoid direct conflict as much as possible.
I think I read something where certain breeds of hunter will only attack when attacked first. Then again, it could be something that's no longer part of the canon. Who knows?
Well, if that would be the case, I mean, Jill and Leon wouldn't know that anyway. They wouldn't even know what the Hunters are. Probably by the end of the story, Wesker would probably get cornered by a group of Hunters. Leon, Jill, and Ada just about make it to the helipad when they come under fire from Hunk's team. Of course, that draws in some more undead, possibly a hunter or two. George Romero's script for his rejected script for the movie had this scene where there was a whole horde of zombies coming after the STARS team, and they were popping them left and right. And the analogy he used was it was like a syringe. It was like the liquid of a syringe being pushed towards them. Or it's like the corridor itself was the syringe and the zombies were the liquid.
I can see how that would be terrifying.
Yeah, so that would be another thing for them to deal with while they get to the helipad, have the tyrant come out, have the big battle with that. Something happened to Ada where it's implied that she may be dead. She's obviously not, because it's Ada.
Yeah, drops a rocket launcher for them. Now we're even.
Yeah, have Brad or Chris or somebody drop the rocket launcher down. You're our Amazon, Jill! And then just blow up the tyrant. I probably would not keep the "You're our Amazon, Jill" line, because that was stupid. Jill and Leon, of course, getting flown out of there and the mansion being destroyed right behind them. Maybe have a pre-credit scene of Ada beaten up but still alive in a boat, maybe going across Victory Lake nearby. I don't know if Victory Lake is near the Spencer Mansion or not. Victory Lake being Raccoon City's main primary source of water, as Ada's driving her boat away, you could probably do a slow zoom in to a sewer grate on a mountainside beneath the mansion, and some rats coming out through the grate, since that's how the virus spread to Raccoon City, was after Birkin destroyed Hunk's team. Some sewer rats, some sewer rats got into the virus and wound up carrying it from the sewers to Victory Lake, which of course is Raccoon City's main source of water.
And they drank the water and infected the entire supply.
Yes, and that would be the precursor to what happens in the second film.
Different, but more faithful.
It's not 100% what everything that happens in the game, but it's enough. And, of course, that would be coupled by wildly different music and wildly different cinematography and editing. As I was rewatching the first movie today, there were a lot of shot choices where I was like, it doesn't feel like he actually thought the frames out. It kind of felt like they were just there because he needed to shoot something. And it doesn't help matters that it was lit like a fucking TV movie. Like, people want to complain about Welcome to Raccoon City looking like a TV movie. Like at least Johannes Roberts used lighting in that fucking film. Yeah, a good chunk of it is dark, but at least there is some thought put into how each scene is lit. Everything in Anderson's RE1 is overlit. Even when it's supposed to be dark, it's overlit. That opening scene in the elevator is a perfect example. Moving to the second film, is there anything you would keep about Resident Evil Apocalypse before I start laying into what I would probably do different?
I'd say I'd at least keep in the Nemesis, but take away the Matt character.
You can't have a Matt character because I just scrubbed him from existence in the first movie.
Not even as like a twist, just like keeping the Nemesis, like in the games, the Nemesis' true identity is still unknown.
Yeah, and his true identity doesn't matter. Do you know in the novelization for Resident Evil Apocalypse, there's a constant inner conflict that Matt is having as the Nemesis, like he's trying to wrest control from Umbrella. He's trying to regain control of his own body, but he can't. So he's fully aware of what he's doing as the Nemesis, and he can't stop himself.
You say that, it makes me sympathize him a little more.
Yeah, you know where that information would have been great to have? The fucking movie.
It's like with the Godzilla vs. Kong adaptation, they went into detail talking about how when Serizawa's son started up Mechagodzilla and it caused that whole brain shock thing, when all that happened and it ran through the skull, it reawakened Ghidorah's consciousness, and Ghidorah possessed Mechagodzilla. And when it saw Godzilla, it went straight for him because, well, it recognized Godzilla.
You don't have to explain that much. You just have to give the audience enough information. And, of course, that information that Matt is struggling to regain control of his own mutated body would have been great to have in the fucking movie. I was debating whether I would keep the Nemesis or replace him with something like Mr. X, just because the Nemesis has already been used in live-action form.
That would make more sense, considering we haven't gotten a live-action Mr. X yet.
Yeah, we had a Tyrant in Extinction, and not gonna lie, the Tyrant was one of the cooler parts of that movie. Well, first order of business with Resident Evil 2, I would not give it the Resident Evil Apocalypse subtitle because I am fucking sick and tired of movies with subtitles in their titles. I'm sick of, like, Resident Evil, Apocalypse. Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City. Fucker, just put a number at the end of the fucking title. Do what they used to do in the 80s and the 90s. Just put a number at the end of the title instead of Extinction, Retribution, The Final Chapter, Resident Evil Part Pi, The Quest for More Money, and another excuse to give Mila Jovovich work.
Yeah.
Can we just stop giving her work in general? Because she's a model. She's not an actress. She can't act, or think, or speak. She is a prop with speaking lines. And over the course of 6 movies, she was never anything above a haircut and a testosterone treatment away from being a sleepwalking Rachel Maddow. So, first order of business with my version of Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil 2, we're still on with Jill and Leon being the point of focus, since Wesker was a third act reveal antagonist at the end of the first one, we should probably make Chief Irons a central antagonist of the second one. Jill and Leon trying to further investigate into what Umbrella has been doing, and Irons stonewalling their investigation, suspending Jill from stars, and putting Leon with somebody who is not good friends with Jill, who is unlikely to further raise a fuss or keep the investigation going on her behalf. Somebody like Chicken Heart Brad Vickers. Since the water is now filled with T-virus, Raccoon City would slowly start, we would probably like flash forward like a week or something like that, where the city is really starting to feel the effects of the virus in the water. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't one of the Outbreak games have a scenario that opened in a bar, like right as the citywide infection starts happening?
What a weird customer.
Who is this guy? Damn it! He's unconscious. Are you all right?
What are you doing?
It's very the citywide the way the T-virus spreads through Raccoon City in Apocalypse is very abbreviated. It's very sudden. We get almost nothing. So instead, I would probably have sort of a slow build-up to where Jill or Leon and Brad are probably just trying to go about their normal days when some of the locals are clearly showing signs that they might have consumed something they shouldn't have. Of course, Jill and Leon might know exactly what that is, or have a good idea. You'd probably have a scene of Jill just trying to have a night out, just clear her head at that bar when Leon and Brad, probably on duty, probably on the graveyard shift, would come in. Leon's got something to show Jill, but then the zombies attack, and they've got to fight their way out of that. Brad and Jill and Leon probably end up in that church, the church that was actually in the movie, and there might be a scene involving the Lickers, but it would be nowhere near as stupid as what we saw in the actual movie. It would be Leon and Jill and Brad very quickly figuring out that they can't see because they're just kind of cocking their heads left and right and all over the place, but they have no idea where those three are.
Probably a snarl here and there.
Oh yeah, definitely a snarl or a hiss, or one of them throwing their tongue out to see if it grazes anything. And Leon and Jill and Brad can't leave through the front door because there's a horde of zombies in the street. So they would probably try to slip out through the back, and while they're doing that, we would probably show Nemesis being airdropped in, kind of like how Mr. X was dropped in scenario B of RE2. Probably have a scene introducing the UBCS team that's sent into Raccoon City to help the police clear out the zombies. Have a very almost beat for beat, shot for shot recreation of the opening sequence from the original RE3. And at that point, we'd be introduced to Carlos and Nikolai and Mikhail.
And Murphy.
Yeah, we'd probably throw Murphy in there too.
I know Tyrell was in the original, but was Murphy in the original?
There was one unnamed mercenary, I don't know if he had a name, where depending on certain actions you could take, Jill would either walk in on him being shot by Nikolai, or Carlos would walk in on him about to turn and very regretfully filling him full of ammo.
Don't make me do this, Murphy. I don't want to shoot you. Kill me. I finished. Not human. Wait, we don't have to do this. Please hurry. Before I lose conscious. Before too late. Kill me! Murphy. Why? No. No.
So we would be introduced to that small bunch of UBCS troops. Leon and Jill, of course, and Brad getting out of the church, just barely. At least somebody's got to screw something up, so it would probably end up being Brad making some kind of noise by accident and drawing the lickers to where they are, and Leon having to go up front with a shotgun as they haul ass out the back, probably into a cemetery behind the church. I would not keep that cemetery sequence that was actually in the movie because there was no reason for it to be there. It was just another excuse to have a pointless action scene.
I seriously doubt that, the virus can seep into the dirt and bring back corpses like that.
It might have been Baffled Buffoon, but somebody brought up that, it's supposed to be the recently deceased. And there were quite a few people in that graveyard that had undergone at least years, if not decades, worth of decay. That whole scene was horseshit. Even if you try to say, well, but in Code Veronica, there were all those cemetery zombies at the beginning, and it's like, yeah, but they were prisoners on that island. They were Rockford Island prisoners. They could have been Umbrella test subjects for all you know.
I heard someone say that they just want to reference Return to Living Dead.
Well, there's a time and a place to put a reference in. Sometimes you just shouldn't bother. Once they're out of the church, then they have a chance to breathe, because this whole time, Leon's been carrying a satchel with him ever since he got into Jay's bar. At this point, he would then show Jill why he was trying to get her attention, which is he's been following Chief Irons in his off time, and he's discovered that Irons has been meeting an Umbrella scientist who would later be revealed to be William Birkin, and at least one of those meetings involved him being slipped an envelope full of cash. That would be the reveal that Irons has been on Umbrella's payroll. So now they've got to head to the police station, but then there would be a point where they can't even actually get to the station because Nemesis has arrived. I like the idea of Nemesis carrying both a chain gun and a rocket launcher, so I'd probably have him using those. Jill and Leon managing to find cover. Maybe have Brad reveal that he got bit at the bar, kind of throw himself at the Nemesis and use the line, "You want stars, I'll give you stars," as Jill and Leon kind of slip away, get them to the police station, where the situation is pretty much chaos because the undead are getting in, and maybe Leon and Jill would encounter Irons offing a couple of fellow officers, maybe even Marvin, unless Marvin's already been bitten at this point. At least they could find Marvin injured in the West office, like how you found him in the original RE2. Because that was a thing in the games, was that Irons pretty much shafted his own people, first by spreading ammunition caches around the station, and then at some point he pretty much lost his shit and started killing his own men. Leon and Jill try to get to Chief Irons, but they're unable to because, that would be a good time to introduce to have some more lickers come in. Either that or have Nemesis reemerge, maybe crashing through the window in the west hallway like he did in the original RE3. Somehow find a way to get Leon and Jill into... I haven't quite figured it out yet, but by some miracle, Leon and Jill would have to evade Nemesis and follow Irons into the sewers. Leon and Jill, of course, would be dealing with Nemesis probably in the lobby, and Carlos and his team would probably come in because they've got to, like, when they were trying to get Dr. Barton in the RE3 remake, I would probably change that to where now instead they're trying to get to the Nest Labs because they've got to extract William Birkin. And of course they would help Jill and Leon deal with the Nemesis and not quite kill him, but fuck him up pretty good. And then the whole team has to go down to the sewers. From there you would have Irons confronting Birkin accusing him of trying to screw him over, and you would have a scene somewhat similar to when Wesker finds Birkin in the Nest lab in Welcome to Raccoon City, where you got William Birkin, you've got Annette there, and you've got Sherry there, and have Irons shoot Birkin and then just kind of walk off, have Birkin inject himself with the G virus, then, mutate and go after Irons and kind of tear him apart just as Jill and Leon and the UBCS team get there. Have Nikolai run off like a bitch and lock the door behind him so that they can't get out, like what he did when Nemesis came on the train in the RE3 remake.
Nikolai, what are you doing?
It's not after you.
Nikolai!
So now they've got Birkin to deal with. Probably at some point they would get separated and Leon would be stuck with Carlos, maybe Mikhail. Jill would be either on her own or with Tyrell and Murphy. Or, no, just probably have Birkin kill Tyrell and Murphy. And then there's kind of a cat and mouse chase through the lab. I would probably put like a cat and mouse chase through the lab. Birkin trying to get to Jill. Maybe have the Nemesis come in to the lab at some point and try to hit Leon and Carlos and Mikhail. Just imagine that, like Nemesis and G Mutant Birkin in the same location.
There was actually a manga depicting that battle.
Yeah, I saw that was a thing. Too bad that never got translated into English. Probably have a scene where Leon and Carlos and Mikhail are trying to, or have found an elevator and they're trying to escape Nemesis that way. And, similar to how, Mr. X got eviscerated going after Claire and Sherry in the RE2 remake. Have Nemesis get eviscerated by Birkin.
Bye, Nemi.
Maybe Jill could find Annette and Sherry. Annette is hell-bent on putting her husband down, much like she was in the RE2 remake. Which that was one thing that I wasn't totally big on with Welcome to Raccoon City, was that they made it so that Annette did not know the extent of what her husband was doing. Whereas in the games, of course, she was fully aware, and she was an active participant in his viral experimentations. She wasn't a test subject, but she was a fellow researcher. I'd probably have Annette get herself killed trying to stop Birkin. Everybody else who's still alive manages to find the train so that they can get out. At some point, probably during the process of William killing his wife, that would be like when you're cornered by Mr. X in scenario B as Leon, and then Ada shoots him and gets thrown into the self-destruct system. Probably have something similar happen to that, but instead it's just Birkin and Annette. So she's gone. We ain't gonna see her again. Have Leon and Jill and everybody else get on the train, and everybody think they're safe, but then who comes in through the back car but Birkin, just as the facility is getting incinerated.
Sherry!
Yes. Maybe have Mikhail get himself killed trying to stop Birkin, similar to how he got himself killed trying to stop Nemesis on the train in the RE3 remake,
Get off my train, shit bird!
Every time I see every time I watch that scene, I'm like, well, somebody just saw Air Force One.
Get off my plane.
Then obviously that wouldn't do much to... All that would do was cause Birkin to further mutate, probably into that gelatinous blob from the end of RE2. Have, of course, the big moment where Leon finds a rocket launcher, blows him up. Which, say what you want about Welcome to Raccoon City's portrayal of Leon, but he got to have the most badass moment in the entire movie.
A rocket launcher? Found it in first class.
And from there, just everybody except Nikolai has made it out. From there, I would probably show a bit of somebody watching them exit the tunnel in their demolished train through a satellite feed. Probably a slow pull-out to reveal that it's Wesker, who is still very much alive. And that would tie into the third movie, which I would probably be more along the lines of Code Veronica, or adapting the story of Code Veronica with a few tweaks here and there. From that point forward, I'm not sure how the series would end up progressing, because everything from the third movie on up, I would pretty much just be axing everything Anderson did. The whole post-apocalyptic angle, which should not have been in Resident Evil to begin with, which was only there because he wanted to make a Mad Max movie without making a Mad Max movie. All the dumb music video style action sequences and the goofy set design where it was like everything just looked way too pretty and way too shiny and clean for a post-apocalyptic setting, which for me, that in my opinion, that's inexcusable. Those movies they had no atmosphere. There were a lot of shine and no atmosphere. They were just there. So, is there any point I have made that you would not be on board with?
No, I still think they'd be better than what we got.
I mean, it's all in the execution at the end of the day, and this is just me spitballing a thing off on another friend. Like I said, from that point forward, I'm not totally sure where I would take the series. I would probably keep it in a more... I would definitely keep it in a more horror bent, even when you have to get action-y, which the second movie would probably get a little more action-heavy, but it would definitely still be in a more horror vein, where, they're not John Matrix clones. They're just normal people who got swept up in a massive corporate conspiracy to create bioweapons for military use.
Yeah, basically like the original RE3. Like, it had some action qualities, but it was still horror overall.
Yeah, like I said, the third movie would probably be like my version of Resident Evil Extinction, just with certain narrative tweaks.
Like no apocalypse.
No post-apocalyptic bullshit. Bringing in the Ashfords and the T. Veronica virus, and of course Wesker being resurrected, since pre-credit scene for Resident Evil 2 would already tease that, or would already reveal that he's actually still alive. I'm not sure how I would factor other characters from the games into it, like how to factor Claire into the story, how to factor Chris or Barry or anyone else. These are just the baseline ideas I had for the first two Anderson Evil movies.
I'm gonna say at least keep it to where Chris and Claire are related.
Yes, I mean they were still related in Afterlife. It's just,
but Afterlife just
Well, it doesn't help matters that after Afterlife, we never heard a fucking word about Chris ever again. So it was like, okay, well, fuck him, I guess. But in any event, that's gonna do it today. Let me know how you guys would set about changing the Anderson movie or salvaging the Anderson movies. Thanks for watching, and take care.